slow route, and conditioning the mind for lucidity. Now, this is, I think it's a really cool topic actually, because while everyone who's getting into the mainstream now and is rushing towards goals and dreams and manifesting certain things in their life, what we're doing here is we're taking our focus off of that and we're putting it onto preparing the mind and the body and the space, conditioning the mind, conditioning the body for these things to happen to us more often. And what that means is that we're training the mind to go deep into these unconscious states consciously, and to reprogram the automatic programming to give us things that are outside the norm automatically. And so what we can do in order to make that happen is to train our mind into different brainwave frequencies. And so there's 5 major frequencies. There's the beta frequency, which you're in most of the time, which is quite busy and in survival mode, and is often associated to fight, flight, and freeze, or busyness, busy thinking, doing activities. And then we can move into alpha state, which is more of a learning state. It's a longer wave. And then the mind begins to open up and it can take in new information from its environment and process information internally in a different way. It's like a larger bandwidth. And then from there, if we can stay conscious and aware, we can slip into a deeper state, which brings us deeper into the programming layers, and that's a theta state, and it's mainly associated with REM sleep or dreaming. If you can stay conscious in this state, in a walking, waking state, this is where magic begins to happen, and you start to transcend the third dimension limitations, even if it's ever so slightly. And this is where you'll hear people talk about synchronicities and manifestations and tapping into alternate states of mind and picking up information that is not in the space-time reality around them. If you can go deeper than that and stay aware, then you slip into a delta frequency. And the delta frequency is associated to deep sleep and regeneration and recovery. This is where healing takes place really, really rapidly, because there's no interruptions. The body just slips into a deep restful state. The immune system kicks into high gear. There's no conscious personality interrupting or beliefs getting in the way. And the autoimmune system takes over and starts to heal the body in ways that the conscious personality can't understand. And if we can go further than that, or deeper, or so, I don't know if it's deeper than delta or if it's evolution of high beta, but we can sort of achieve this next level, which is gamma, from every state actually, because from what I understand, it's a blending of all the frequencies together. Another way of looking at it is, we have all these emotions which are different energy frequencies. And when we talk about feeling states of love or bliss, it's most likely a blending of all emotions, or the syntax energy that becomes all emotions. So gamma state is, well, it's hard to describe really, but when you're in it, you know it. There's no mistaking it, because it's so unfamiliar familiar is the best way to put it, I think. It's this state of being where you sort of you're like, wow, this is it. This is what life's all about. This is how it should be all the time. And it feels so familiar to you, but at the same time, perhaps rare. That you're not even sure how you got into there or how you're going to get back. But when you're in it, you don't need to worry about any of that stuff because you're in it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to play some samples of some binary beats in different frequencies. And so you can get an understanding of what they sound like and how it feels when you hear them. And then what I recommend you do is get onto YouTube, which is where I got these ones from. Type in binary beats and go through the different layers, alpha, theta, delta, and gamma, and try them out. Like what's the metaphor I'm looking for? Like scales, if you're playing the piano, or just musical scales. Basically, try them in order and try them in reverse, and then try them in different combinations, and see whether you can if you can go into these trance states and transcend or traverse, through these different frequencies from one to the other. Now, some are easier to go from one to the other because, if we go in sequence, they're similar to each other, and others will take a bigger jump. So I just encourage you to practice these first of all, in a neutral state and get familiar with them. And then when you feel that you can slip in and out of these states easily, then you can start to get into these states from different emotions, different times of the day, and different states of being, whether it's sitting still and relaxed, or it's, moving and walking, or doing high intensity activity, or being in a stressful situation and being able to change your state within that environment and different environments. These are good methods to get you into those lucid states and to start spreading that lucid state, lucidity, into different areas of your life and different states of being. And from there, once you've got those locked down and you can access those states at will, then there's lots of different things we can do. So for now, this part of the training is just about getting you access to these states. Once you've got access, there's a lot we can do. But all the tools and all the methods and all the how-tos aren't going to mean a pinch of shit of difference if you can't access those frequencies where you want to introduce those new codes, those new payloads. So let's try the first one out, which is alpha, and let's just hear what this sounds like and what it feels like. So you might feel something around your head. You might feel the brain entraining itself into a different frequency, which also might change your physiology. So just allow whatever to happen and just pay attention to what's going on and allow your awareness to record the event. Okay, we'll pause there. Now we'll move into theta frequency. which obviously has a different pulse. Just take a moment to recognize how it feels. Good. Now we're going to move into delta, which is a deeper frequency. Good. And finally, gamma. Good. I'm going to leave this one playing, but I'm going to turn it down and leave it running in the background ever so slightly. And so what we're doing here now is we're just training and attuning the brain to come into resonance with a gamma frequency. And theory goes that the gamma frequency has all frequencies contained inside it. So this is like a syntax training for the brain body energy system. Once you've got root access to gamma frequency, you've pretty much got access to the other frequencies, or more it's more like the brain and body has the capacity to tune into the other frequencies. So if you're going to focus on a frequency, I would say focus on gamma, but it's important to be proficient in all of the frequencies, alpha, theta, delta, and gamma. Wouldn't worry too much about training in beta, because the environment, social consciousness is conditioning us into beta frequency all the time. You just have to turn on the news and watch it for half an hour and you'll be in high beta. Having said that though, if you want to train yourself to see if you can pull yourself out of beta, which is a very important skill to have, maybe you would want to do some training with the binary beat frequencies and then put yourself into a mild state of stress, beta frequency, high beta frequency, and then see if you can pull yourself out of it. And so by doing this, training on the brainwave frequencies first, it gives you access Okay. And then we can start to tool you up. We can start to add new platforms and new ways of thinking and being, and new techniques within those frequencies, because sometimes the techniques that you'll be using won't work as well or within the kind of time frames you're expecting if you're in the wrong frequency, if you're in the wrong state. For example, if you're wanting to manifest objects out of thin air, so to speak, being in high beta or beta isn't going to cut it. Sometimes being in alpha isn't going to work. You probably would want to get your manifestations, your codes, installed at least at a theta or a delta level if you can. Like if you can get into delta consciously and drop your new codes, your new programs in at that level, then you're going to see some pretty instant results. The other thing is that's not really talked about very much is if you are accessing these deeper states with frequency and predictability, then sometimes you're going to need to come out of those states and ground them. And so if you're getting into deep states like deep theta, where you're sort of walking around half dreaming all the time, and you've spent a lot of time reconfiguring your reality, and you're not seeing many results, then maybe you want to put it down for a little while, bring yourself back into an alpha and then into a beta frequency nice and gently, and start to see things land in your reality, start to take shape in your reality. The reverse is true also. If you're trying to manifest things because you're in a high beta stressful situation, if you're working mass to mass in a beta frequency, it's going to take a long time and a lot of maneuvering and a lot of effort to get those codes changed, if they will change and take root. What you want to be doing is diving as deep as you can go, and that will all depend on your conditioning and your training, and then install the new thought in as deep as you can, and then bring yourself back out. So just to recap, so we're training in all these different brainwave frequencies: alpha, beta not so much, alpha, theta, delta, gamma, and then we're training in them as scales. So you go alpha, theta, delta, gamma, gamma, delta, theta, alpha, and then maybe you want to try going from, say, theta to gamma or delta to alpha, and switch it up and see what you can do. So just to give you a metaphor, if you were training in martial arts and I was taking you through some training, I would teach you the basic, or let's say boxing. I would teach you how to jab, I would teach you how to punch, I would teach you how to hook, I would teach you how to uppercut, and maybe I'd give you a few combinations: jab, punch, maybe jab, punch, hook, punch, and maybe uppercut, punch, uppercut, or hook, punch, hook. And then we'd train in those, and you get you really good in those combinations. So you've got lots of, you're okay basically. You can hold your own at a beginner, intermediate level. And we get those perfect. We get those as good as we possibly can. So you're transferring all your energy through into the strike. You're not overextending or telecasting. Your balance is good, your speed is good, your timing is good, all the rest of it. And then from there, once you've got those patterns locked in, then we'd mix up the patterns. So maybe then we give you jab, jab, punch, hook, punch. Or maybe we'd go uppercut, punch, hook, punch. or something like that, or punch, uppercut, punch, hook, punch. And then we'd give you a few different combinations so you were even more equipped and you had more at your disposal in your arsenal, so to speak. So once you're trained into these frequencies, let's just switch it up while we're here. So we'll come out of gamma and we'll go into theta. And so from here, what we'd be doing is we'd be looking at manifesting something. Okay, so in my experience, because it was easy for me and it was an easy thing to visualize, this is the other thing, visualization, being able to create imagery in your mind in 3 dimensions is really important. When we talk about visualization, most people from the conversations I've had at a beginner level begin visualizing themselves or their new reality in 2 dimensions. In other words, looking at a screen and either they're in the picture or they're observing themselves in the picture, or they're not even observing themselves in the picture. And yes, you can still manifest that way, but what adds a lot more power and potency to your manifestations is if you're dimensionalizing or visualizing. Dimensionalizing is a better word because you're giving dimension to it. You're giving 3D dimension to it and adding time into your images and movies that you create in your mind. And what's happening is, as you do this, at first it might not be that clear. It might be a bit of a struggle or a strain. People go, oh, I can't really visualize that sort of thing. And so what you're doing is you're building the neurology to be able to use the brain that way. Just know that inherently all the things that you need are already there. For example, to create green in the imagery is already, the neurology is already there. To create the skin tone color, the neurology is already there. To create the white biscuit color in the background is already there. To hear sound like my voice, the neurology is already there. But it's maybe not used consciously yet. It's like on your computer, you know, you've got a paint shop program or a video editing program that comes standard. It might not be the best program for doing video editing, but you've got one in your computer there. It's actually, that's probably on your phone too. So it's a matter of learning how to use it. And the best way to learn how to use it is to start using it and to make lots of mistakes. And so this is the other part of going the slow ways, because to condition yourself is that you're not just trying to, the goal isn't just to manifest things, it's to have the ability to manifest anything. And so this takes a lot more skill, because you can go to courses and you can sit in rooms and groups where everyone's agreed upon creating a certain thing, like, oh, let's have a world peace meditation, let's have a healing meditation, all good things. But the room, the audience, the person leading the meditation, it's all conditioned into a certain frequency. And when more people are gathered into that, it's much easier for that to collapse. But if you leave that environment, that group, and you go out on your own, or you go home and try to do it by yourself, it might not work the way you expected it to. It might not work the same way. And that's not because it won't work or it doesn't work. It's just that maybe the skill level and the neurology in the mind is not quite set up right or strong enough to be able to sustain that frequency long enough. So coming back to training, this is why training is so important, to train the frequencies in, because especially like when you're dimensionalizing, if you can stay and without much effort in the theta state, then when you start dimensionalizing, becomes so much easier, than trying to hold an image in your mind while stressing about or thinking about or planning tomorrow or worrying about your body, that sort of thing. Another reason why to train into Delta is if you've got aches and pains in your body, if you've got health issues, that can be very distracting when it comes to switching states. And so training yourself into a Delta state, allowing the body to go into deep relaxation, recovery, and regeneration, can alleviate a lot of those problems. It's like running a virus scan on your computer, all those little pop-ups and things that keep you distracted and get in your way and take up and chew up a lot of your time and energy and focus. They all just sort of sort themselves out, and you don't have to worry too much about any of those things. So while we're in theta, let's just pick an object. Let's pick something. Let's pick an animal. So the first one that I dimensionalized, first animal I dimensionalized consciously was a fox. So what I would do is I would take out my notepad. Let's find a clear page. And what's good about this is that there's no, what's the word I'm looking for? Slipped my mind because I'm in theta and I'm not thinking logically. So basically what I would do is I would just draw, even with stick figure and shapes, I would just draw an image like that. Okay, represents a fox. I even write the word fox. And then I'd go into my state, my theta state. So we're already there because we've been in training it through the sound frequency of the binary beats. I would get really relaxed, stay awake though, alert but relaxed alertness, and I'd go into an expanded awareness. So it's like you may stare at the wall or pick a place in your environment, a spot. You'd rest your eyes on that and you would expand your focus way out into the periphery, 360 degrees. So you could at least sense what was behind you if you needed to. And you just begin to relax your body. Any tension, you begin to focus in on the tension. Breathe and release the charge around it. And you start to build your energy, you start to cultivate that frequency. Allow it to transfer into every cell of your body. Allow your cells to vibrate with that frequency and expand out beyond your body, out into your environment. And without any effort at all, you just allow your energy to interact and condition the space around you into the same frequency. And maybe you'd keep your eyes open or maybe you'd close them. It doesn't really matter, as long as you can visualize, dimensionalize, hold that image of the fox in your mind. And just like if you were a visual artist inside a computer program, you'd start to animate the fox. You'd give it the frame, and then you'd give it the skin, and then the hair, and you'd give it color, and maybe you'd rotate it around so you could work on different parts of it, and you just have it there in a black environment space, hovering in space, and you can rotate it, and it's your image of the fox. And some people create a red fox, other people create a white Arctic fox, other people create the rare black fox, or the brown fox. It's up to you. It doesn't really matter. But you're just going to hold the image. And now let's play with it. Let's shrink the image and push it away further out. Rotate it out there. Move it around in space and bring it back into its original position, original size. Make it bigger. Push that away. Move it around in space and bring it back. Rotate it. Shrink it back to normal size. Smaller, larger. And just start to play with the controls. And give it as much detail as you can. See if you can turn it into those, high-res CGI imagery where it's so detailed that you're not even sure if it's a computer image or if it's a real image. Just like some of those DreamWorks imagery animations that I'm sure if they really wanted to spend more time adding detail, they could make it so real that you couldn't tell the difference whether it was an animation or an actual film like from National Geographic. And maybe now that you've got the image, you can make the fox run on a loop, just running there in space. Maybe you can stop it. Maybe you can make it sit and then rotate it sitting. Okay, well, just do the best you can. Just play with the image a little more. And while you're working on the image, I'm just going to tell you a bit of a story of what happened when I did this myself. Is that in a very short period of time, I started to see foxes everywhere and in all different forms. I started to see things that remind me of the fox. I would see red hair on people, or I would see people behaving in ways that were fox-like, cheeky and cunning and things like that. I would see billboards and posters with fox imagery on them amongst the advertising. I would see fox logos on bags and clothing. I would see fox trinkets inside these stores. I would see fox ornaments in jewelry shops. I would see foxes on TV shows. I would see representations of fox characters in fancy dress masks. I would see them everywhere, and I didn't I didn't exclude any fox to say, well, that wasn't quite what my image was. Remember, this is a representation of fox. So the mind now is starting to build the neurology to be able to perceive foxes in the environment. And when you do see them, don't question whether you've created them or whether they were there already and you just notice them. Because from your point of view, it's the same thing. If you didn't notice them before and now you notice them, then you've created the neurology in the mind to perceive them. And if they weren't there before and now they are, maybe you've created the neurology in the mind to project them into your reality to perceive them. It's kind of the same thing. And now we're getting into the mechanics of manifestation. And so if you've done this right, not only will you see foxes, but you'll see them frequently, and you'll see them all the time. Maybe not every day, but you'll see them continuously. I still, after a year and a half, 2 years, see foxes showing up in my reality because the programming has been installed to be able to see them. And so what's happening here is the reticular activating system, which is in the visual cortex of the brain, is now tuned in to search, seek fox. And so if you get success, which I'm pretty sure you will, because I have this sort of ability to transfer this to people who do this with me. And see, so now I'm just going to start filling in more detail here. This is all you do. You keep adding to your image. Keep adding to your image. Okay, you don't have to be Van Gogh or Leonardo da Vinci, but you just keep adding and adding and working the image more and more and more. And eventually what happens is you'll start to create the neurology in the mind, and it will become stronger. And what you're doing here is you're creating garden beds of neural nets that produce certain particular specific things. So you start off with fox. In this training session, this will be a good indicator to see if you have done this practice and it works for you, just off one training session. And then from there, if it works for one thing, it should theoretically work for another thing, the same process. All you're doing there is you're changing the variable, which is fox. So the next one for me, I stuck with animals because I thought my mind is easily accepting of these values. And next I went to goat. So I went to mountain goat. And like I said, you don't have to be a great artist, because your brain, if it's fed the right material, will create it for you. You just have to have another image, and then you can move and transfer the ability from one value, i.e. fox, to another value, which is goat, for example. And I continued this process for a few months using different animals, and of course I would test my own beliefs to see if I create other things in and around my belief systems. So the idea behind doing animals this way and just seeing if they show up in your perception or your environment as physical objects, the reason why I chose animal totems, is because it was fun for me. I didn't care whether they showed up or not. I didn't put any value on my ability of whether it worked or not. If I saw a fox, I would go, oh, not only is that cool, but what does the fox represent? Or if I saw a goat, what did the goat represent? Or if I saw had an unusual encounter with an animal in my environment that I wouldn't normally see, I would go and search animal totem. What does the animal characteristic represent? And so I would use it as a little game. But when it came to things, and that was outside of it, I didn't have a belief system around it. I didn't believe whether I could do it or not. I didn't care. I didn't, I didn't put any value on my esteem, my self-esteem, or my confidence of whether I could do it or not. It didn't matter to me. I couldn't care less if it showed up or if it didn't. All it represented is that it was working or it wasn't working. That's it. And so, of course, I moved on and did several different animals. I just kept going on with animals because it was a good baseline for me to train in, to get the training done, so I could learn how to use the technology, which is the mind and the body and the energy system, and then I could get good at using the technology. So, for example, if you wanted to go in and become a visual designer on the computer because you wanted to be an architect, because you wanted to build your dream home, you wouldn't start off trying to design your dream home, because you maybe get frustrated while you were learning to use the programming and trying to get your image of what you want and how you want to feel in your future into the program could bring up thoughts of disbelief and hinder you in your progress. So what do when you go to art school, or to learn how to use the visual basic program, is they get you to design shapes and add colors to them, and it's very basic, and the whole purpose is not to even produce an image of any great quality. It's just to learn how to do it. Once you learn how to do it, you can produce any image inside there. You can create whatever you want. And the idea here is not just creating imagery in the mind, but to make sure that the programming that imagery in the mind actually translates into projecting into reality and landing into physical form. So that's what we're doing here, and that's what being lucid is like. It's like, imagine going, training. This will do two things. One, it will help you dream more lucidly too when you actually go to sleep at night, and you can actually process things and have experiences through your dreams, and have that very specifically tailored to what you want to do and what you want to experience. But also, when you start to sustain those states of lucidity while in a waking state, you'll actually have an influence on your physical reality too, and that's what's really cool. So it works both ways. So producing these imagery will help you dream more lucidly, and dreaming more lucidly will help you live more lucidly and create and manifest with more ease and more skill. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up to Q&A. Feel free to send me a speaker request if you want to ask a question directly, or if you want to just get on the chat feed. It's up to you. I don't mind. All right, we'll open it up for a little bit and then we'll wrap up. And you can go out into your field and see if any foxes turn up in your reality. And so, by the way, you're not trying to go searching for foxes and goats and whatever else you're trying to create. You can do that for sure. That's sort of mass-to-mass manifesting. That's still beta frequency manifesting. It's like, all right, I'm going to manifest an encounter with a fox, so you go driving to where the foxes are. It's not quite the same. This is where you change the programming so it shows up in your reality at an unconscious level without any effort. How can we get into other brainwaves easier? Okay, so that's right. So we did cover that in the first few minutes. So what happened was, all I did was I went on to YouTube, and I'll just show you what I was viewing. And so this is the page that I just went into the search,